So this is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Welcome you to the latest edition of DIBELLA's Digest with the man himself, Lou DiBella. And Lou, as used to be customary in season one, we should go back to it. How has your week been?
It's 80 degrees now and sunny. I just went out for a nice lunch by the water, and I'm going to Australia tomorrow for the rematch of Kambosos and Haney, where I think George better fight a completely different kind of fighter. He's in real trouble, and I expect him to fight a different fight. I don't know that it will keep him out of trouble, but I think there will 100% be a way, way better fight the second time, because he has to sell out. He has to go balls to the wall. He has to go out on a shield, because he didn't do those things the first fight. So if he's going to not prevail, for the sake of his future, he has to go down, really going after Haney. And I think he's going to. I think he's going to go after Haney. So I think it'll at least be an entertaining fight. But I've had a pretty good week on the whole. I've had a pretty good week, and I'm not complaining. I've had a better week than a lot of people have.
Funny you should mention that, Lou. Although it's sunny on the east coast of America, there's something of a dark cloud hanging over the boxing scene in the UK at the moment after the very short notice postponement of Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn after the drug test results.
By the way, interestingly, Danny, you just said the last minute postponement, but that test result, I think, was given out on the 23rd of September, right? So it was over a week that it sort of hung out there, right? So, I mean, it could have really been resolved a little bit earlier, it seems to me, but I don't really know all the details. But I do know that it was dated, that email that notified people of the adverse finding was dated September 23rd. So I sort of wonder why everyone involved really seemed not to come out until a few days before the fight. Were they hoping for another Dillian Whyte situation? I don't know.
I think a lot of parallels have been drawn with the Dillian Whyte Oscar Rivas situation, in that it wasn't publicly known that Whyte had the findings on his test until after the fight had already occurred. Now, in this case, both camps were asked if they were happy to continue with the fight on the basis of knowing the results. Whereas
Rivas, it doesn't matter if the camps are happy. You know what? That whole bullshit. Anyone that would sit there, okay, so one guy's carrying a weapon into the ring and the other guy's not.
Yeah.
But the guy's willing to get shot by that gun because he wants his paycheck. But boxing's supposed to protect the health and safety of the athlete. The fact that both guys were willing to go ahead with it means nothing. And the BBO's, the British Board of Boxing Control, in this circumstance, how do you let it go ahead when you know someone's blown a test? You're not in a position to do that, because God forbid. All right, so the guy says, I'll assume the risk. But then imagine if Conor had won the fight. Would anyone think it would be due to anything other than cheating? Yeah. Imagine the people have gambled on the fight. Imagine if Conor won a fight and people gambled on, the people that bet on the fight. There were a lot of reasons that the cancellation of the fight had to happen. It just is what it is.
There's been some criticism of the Board of Control, though. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. For what?
So basically,
you said that you're frozen.
Oh. Okay,
you there?
I think I'm back. Some people have said, the Board of Control were right to make the ultimate decision they did in refusing to sanction the fight. But why did it take them so long? Because, as you say, the promoters were aware since September the 23rd, and we believe the board were as well. And they only withdrew their sanction when the public became aware, because they said it's not in the best interests of boxing.
Danny, we've had this discussion before. There is no fucking PED testing in boxing in a real way. The BBOC's full of shit. Everyone's full of shit. The WBC has all these rules, but in court, Deontay Wilder beat Povetkin. A jury determined Povetkin cheated. There was no question that he cheated. But you know what the judge did? He threw away the verdict. You know why he threw away the verdict? He said, you don't police your own sport. So I'm not willing to make Povetkin pay when so many other people do. And this goes to another reason where people say, well, I'm not willing to take that step to say people should get condemned and banned. How are you banning people when you're not testing in most places? There are countries when guys are juiced up 24/7. The whole system stinks. And in the United States, in most jurisdictions, there's no PD testing. And the jurisdictions that do one piss test after a fight, that means nothing. I mean, weightlifters, athletes, they're sophisticated. They know how to cycle down. They know how to microdose. They know what to do. No one's getting caught unless they're a complete idiot on the night of the fight, or they are stupid enough to take something tainted by accident. That's how people get caught, only on the night of the fight. So, we need to fix, the whole system needs to be fixed. Otherwise, you can't sit there and give one fighter a death sentence. Like, someone asked me a question on social media. I responded to it, I think privately, but it might even be on my timeline, where they said, would you ban guys from the Hall of Fame for steroid use? How are you going to do that? Look at all the guys that have gotten away with testing positive. You going to ban Canelo from the Hall of Fame?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are loads of guys that have shot positive, greatest fighters in our sport. Now, it doesn't absolve them, but until you're really truly testing, until you're really truly policing your sport, right now we're not in a position to take a lot of actions we would be able to take if we were appropriately doing what we're supposed to be doing. But we're not. As a sport, as an industry, we're not. There is not, PED testing is not a regularly regulated. It's not, there's no unified standards. In most jurisdictions, it's not even done. It's so, who pays for the testing? Well, it's either the fighter himself or the promoter if he's doing around the clock. Who the results go to? There are people that have tested positive. There are fighters that have tested positive that it never came to light because the results went to the promoter. Promoter put it in a drawer. The fight went on. This has happened, countless times. I mean, until we're really policing, then I'm willing to say, death sentence for Conor Benn. But I'm not willing to say that right now because our system doesn't allow us to say that. It wouldn't be fair to the young man to do that. If he knew he was cheating, then he should pay. And if he didn't know that he was cheating, he still can't fight dirty. It's too much of a danger to the opponent. And also there's a little bit of a jankiness to this matchup from the get-go. You had a guy that arguably is technically inferior. I think most people would agree that Benn is technically inferior to Eubank, going up multiple weight classes to fight a bigger, better man. If there was a circumstance where you might think something janky would go on, it would be in a fight like this. Which, by the way, I don't doubt. I'm not criticizing the Sauerlands or Eddie for making this fight because it has this weird significance in the UK, with the two sons of two legends, even though they're not in the same weight class. Obviously, it was going to be an immense event, right? So they didn't miscalculate interest in it. I'm not going to condemn them. I'd be a total hypocrite to do that. So I get why they made it, but there was always that jankiness. I never really thought on the fair and square Conor Benn had a chance. That wasn't my view. If you made me bet $1 million, I would have bet it on Eubank without even a hesitation. But that being said, this happening in this circumstance isn't that sort of shocking to me, given the nature of the fight. I think there's a little bit of the fight had that hook of the much bigger fighter, the much smaller guy, two sons of legends, but really not the same size.
What's the mindset in employing VADA as a testing agency, knowing they've got no punitive powers? And then when
but that's the whole point. None of these agencies have punitive powers. And by the way, the BC, the BA, the BA and the IBF and the BO really don't even test. They don't have a program. The BC has a program, but when a court of law, federal district court in New York, was forced to look at that program, they said there is no regulation because there are no ramifications laid out. You can decide how you want to punish or if you want to punish. Therefore, we're not willing to uphold this verdict because you are the governing body and the governing body's rules aren't good enough. And by the way, I would still commend the BC because they're doing more anti-PED stuff than the other guys are doing, but their system is still toothless. The whole fucking testing is toothless. There really isn't. But when you get caught, you simply can't go on. When you get caught, you got to cancel the fight because it is a weapon in a sport that is innately the hurt business about beating up your opponent. You're not hitting a ball. You're hitting a person, So, and the direct nature of the business is you're trying to do harm, right? I mean, and avoid being harmed. That's what the business is all about. Now, in football, there are a lot of the same issues. Just in contact sports, strength makes a big difference.
Sure.
Endurance makes a difference, and you can cheat for strength and endurance. And a lot of people are doing it, and a lot of people are getting caught, and most of the people cheating are not getting caught. But in boxing, at least if they're beating the system in the NFL, or they're beating the system now in a number of the other sports, there really is more of a ongoing program. If you're beating the system in boxing, there's no real governance. There's no real regulation. There's very little steroid testing, PED testing in boxing. But if you get caught, you can't fight.
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, it's just a weird one in that UCADA is now being held up as the reason why Ben should still be fighting because he passed the tests administered by them.
Let's stop. Was the test given within the same day?
Yeah, we don't know. That hasn't been revealed.
All right, then shut the fuck up because you don't understand testing. Because if their test came subsequently, this is the whole way these guys cheat, by creating amounts so trace that they're hard to find. And then the longer you go away from the last use, the more trace they are. So one more fucking imbecile bot ass licker who's out there on the internet trying to do this false narrative of WADA, of VADA and UCOD here. There's nothing surprising or inappropriate happened. The earlier test with VADA that found the trace amount, the subsequent test did not. That happens with loads of substances. It's not unusual. And stop. I feel like there's a Trumpian thing that goes on. But boxing is more Trumpian than almost any sport, bro. It's very Trumpian. You throw out enough bullshit, or you throw out one grain of truth amongst a sea of vile, disgusting, cuntish lies, and you confuse the ones that have their tongues up your ass anyway, and they support you. And that, I feel a lot of that goes on in boxing. I feel a lot of what we try to do in boxing is run circles around people and confuse them with bullshit and hope that they accept the bullshit. And all too often they do, right? This week, it didn't go down that way. This week, it didn't go down that way for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, depending on how you're looking at it. A fight that was eagerly anticipated, a fight that was a huge event in the UK, had to be brought down for reasons of policy and health and safety, and it happened, And whatever and whatever you want to say about it, the real culprit, there were a lot of culprits this week. There were a lot of people that didn't do any help to themselves, made themselves look silly or made themselves look dishonorable. But the truth of the matter is, only one guy failed the test. And that was Conor Benn. Only one guy failed the test, and it's on Conor Benn and the people around him.
Now, although this is a terrible look for boxing in the short term, could the fact that such a big, well-known, lucrative fight has been called off, no wider benefit?
Jarrell Miller, it's not going to change anything, because who is there to change anything? There's no governance of the sport. There's no commissioner to change things. There's no board of directors to go to and change things. There's no rules committee to change things. Nothing's going to fucking change.
Do you think we'll see VADA used less now in the UK?
There'll be more pressure on these situations. I think there'll be more pressure in these situations on the same exact. You're going to see fewer, maybe in the UK and elsewhere, particularly in major jurisdictions that are considered to be on the up and up. You'll see more pressure to cancel an event when someone's blown a test. You'll see fewer of the bullshit that's gone on in the past. People forget. Chavez failed a test. Everyone knew he blew a drug test. And they moved the venue where they didn't test for the substance. And then the fight went on. I mean, this isn't the first. I'm not going to mention who promoted that fight either, by the way. But there is a consistency here. Like, this isn't the first time. Then there was the Dillian White situation. Well, I'm not going to say who promoted that one either. But and by the way, I'm also going to say that there's a lot of economic pressure on promoters, sites, people that have spent a lot of money not to have an event go down at the last minute. It's economically devastating. There's no insurance for a fight not happening because someone cheated. So I mean, I'm empathetic toward people that didn't cause the cancellation. We're suffering from it. And by the way, people, whoever's promoting it, of an athlete blowing the rules. There are big ramifications economic on a lot of people. How about the fans that bought their trips and their tickets?
Yeah, I mean, they might get refunded for the tickets themselves, but any cost they've incurred in terms of hotels and travel, that's gone, isn't it?
Unless they were cancelable. Yeah, I mean, these things are terrible. And I've look, and the worst part of this is it's because someone's malfeasance. When events go down for COVID, I've had fights go down for COVID. I had a fight go down for COVID this week, still going down for COVID. It blows my mind. I can't imagine how much money I've lost on these cancellations for COVID. But you know what? No one's controlling that. But where you have a fight go down because someone just simply didn't obey the rule, and there may be ramifications. There must be. The reality is, he did. I don't think he's going to ever do it again because he paid such a dear price. Yeah. And I know the guy a long time, and I like the guy, and I don't think he's going to do it any longer. But like I said to you earlier, I'm not giving people death sentences when the system is this fucked up.
Lou, I really, really appreciate the insight. Very impassioned as well, which we're used to from you, of course, but I think it's very warranted in this situation.
So what's the next big fight that's actually, I guess next weekend we got Shields and Savannah Marshall. Pick a winner.
Shields.
Who do you think? Who do you like?
Shields for me on points.
Shields for me too. Shields for me too, though I'll make a prediction. Shields is going to feel at least one punch. Shields is going to, here's my prediction. Shields walks through a little bit of fire and wins a decision.
Yeah.
In what's a pretty good fight.
Yeah, I think that's.
And then you have the Cambosis Haney rematch, which I will not pick a winner for obvious reasons, but I will say I expect a much more competitive fight. I expect a much greater, and puts he goes out on he fights with his shield up, and if he goes down with on his shield. I think that his best chance to win is to make it a very uncomfortable fight for Devin Haney, and to do that he needs to take big chances. He didn't take those chances the first time, but I think he'll take those chances now.
Excellent.
So, and other than those fights, what else is what's the next big fight in the UK?
In the UK, what would be next after that? October, November? Because Buatsi's not fighting now, is he? You've stumped me now, Lou. I'm trying to think. Because obviously next week.
You know what? You know what? Stop right there. I asked the question for a reason, because if you asked me the same question about what's the next big fight over here, I wouldn't have an answer for you. Because right now there's so much in flux. There's so much in flux. We don't know what Joshua's doing. We don't know. Well, Wilder's fighting Helenius, which, by the way, is also the same night, next Saturday night. I said I said this earlier in a previous conversation we had. I expect Wilder to win. I think that Wilder will probably look good against Helenius, because I think Helenius can punch, but he's much slower than Wilder and not as dangerous. But I don't think it's a fight without risk. And I think it's actually sort of a perfect fight for a comeback for Deontay Wilder. If Wilder is himself, he takes care of business. If Wilder is not himself, it could be a very rough night. I actually think that people should be jockeying on their devices next Saturday, because there's going to be a lot to watch.
I will bear that in mind. Lou, really appreciate it. And let's go again next week.